Hello. This is Yuri with Moving Sales Professionals for yet another episode of our podcast. And with me today, I have Colin Vanderwerff of Relocation Engineers based in Toronto, Canada. How you doing today, Colin?
I'm good. I'm good. How are you, Yuri? Thank you for having me here. I really appreciate it. And, hopefully
Great.
we can share some knowledge and insight for your listeners.
Yeah, would love to have that. Obviously, Canadian market, it's close to ours, so we're definitely interested in seeing what we can do there. So how long have you been in the moving industry so far, Colin?
This year will be year 14 for me.
Okay. And how long have the relocation engineers been around?
So is actually our 1 year anniversary for our own company.
Okay. And what got you to this point?
I've been in the industry a long time. I've worked for some of the world's largest moving companies. I started at Two Men in a Truck. I'm sure you're familiar with them.
Mm.
I was there for 8 years, built three franchises. You know, Three franchises in Toronto. Left there, went to 1-800 Got Junk as a business consultant. Was a senior manager for a storage company, and then most recently I was a VP for a small moving company in Toronto. And really, what got me here was, not from a place of arrogance, but just from a place of, a lot of these companies are the same, big ones, small ones. A lot of them, they don't really care about the customer experience. They say they do, but they really don't. They don't really care about their employees. It's really all the same wherever you go. And so, this business has actually been in our heart for the last 6 years. We actually bought the Relocation Engineers domain 6 years ago. And we decided a year ago that it was just time to just do it our way, and sort of take a little bit of the good from every company that I've been at, mix it with a little bit of the, what not to do,
Mm.
and create our own legacy. And it just really hit me. But a year ago, my wife was like, why do you continue building companies for everybody else? What about your family? So it just hit me.
Yeah, I agree. It's such an important thing because so many companies out there they think about making that $200 today, right? When they can make so much more down the road. Sometimes, and I'm not saying it's going to be every customer that you move, but sometimes helping somebody out a little bit, yeah, you may not make that extra 100, $200, but sometimes giving that person a little break may turn into additional referrals and
Right.
repeat customers for you that in turn will bring you a lot more than an extra 100, $200. I
Yeah,
think it's
absolutely.
thinking down the road, don't think in the immediate sense, how much can I put in my pocket right now? You
Big
know,
picture, you know.
think, you got to think bigger. You got to think down the road.
So
So,
we had a client call a couple maybe a month ago, and he just immigrated here from India,
mhm,
and he had 7 suitcases. And I said, our minimum is $800, but sometimes you got to do the right thing. So I said, what's your budget? He says $100. I said, you know what? I'll come out myself and I'll do it. Right. Just to, again, you never know where it turns into.
mhm.
But since then, like, he's had a bunch of his friends come from India, and we've done the same thing. So, that $100 is turning into a lot more. Right.
Mhm.
And you never know who people know. Those small moves. We had another move a couple months ago, sorry. The lady, all she had was 40 boxes, and every moving company she talked to, scoffed at it. She actually had a moving company not show up. We did it. And she sent us a referral for her cousin in a 4,000 square foot house. So, you
Yeah.
gotta, I think, in our business, a lot of moving companies just they want to take on the big jobs, the juicy jobs, like you said. What can we get paid right now? But we got to think about the future. We got to think about, are we going to be around in 50 years, 100 years? Is this really a legacy?
Right. I think one of the other important things that people don't think about, yeah, I mean, obviously you're not going to make a lot of money over $100 a job, for example, right? But if it is a slow market like it is today, and Canada and US are, and UK for that matter, where they're all aligned in that regard. They're all going through the same problems right now in regards to the market, right? So I think, and that's something that I've always suggested to my clients too, put one truck a week, one specific day, just pick one, doesn't matter, and have that truck run and do these small jobs. So if you pile up these small, tiny jobs of 8 suitcases, 40 boxes, whatever on that truck, and let's say that on average, each one of those jobs pays $200, $300, for example, right? On average, $400, right? If they're small jobs, they're going to be get done in an hour, maybe less each.
That's right.
If that truck runs for 8 hours and each job is $200,
Six,
and you do 5 of those,
yeah,
why is that any worse than, than having one bigger job?
that's right.
Like at the end of the day, you do, I think, I mean, yeah, obviously a lot of movers say, oh, you pay us for the minimum. But if you talk to the guys and say, hey guys, we got one truck a week, we're going to send out one day that's going to do these small jobs. And you're going to get paid X amount of dollars per job, for example, because they're small ones. It's not going to take you not much time. It's not going to be very hard labor. It's going to be something that's going to be relatively quick, and a day is going to fly by. That's more work for you. It's
Yeah.
business for us. What do you say? I mean, sometimes you got to talk to the guys. I
And
mean,
it's a
what
break.
is it? Would you rather sit at home and not make any money, or would you rather make something?
That's right. And it's kind of like a break. These guys are used to doing, 10, 12-hour days. It's nice for them to have a little bit of a break, and it's easier on their body. We're not, abusing their body going 6 days a week, 10 hours a day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Good. It's good for them.
Yeah, I
And
think it's a good thing. And now for a quick message from our sponsors. If you're a moving business owner, you may have already heard of Moversville, an email marketing service that helps moving companies increase, repeat, and referral business. But have you heard of Moversville Connect? Moversville Connect is an incredible resource for all things moving. They feature an array of vendors and services that cater specifically to the moving industry. You can find companies that provide moving software, moving sales services, marketing services, moving equipment providers, and much, much more. Visit moversville.com today to learn more. So we've talked about the moving industry a little bit here. So let's talk about some maybe differences in Canada versus US, for example. So in the US, obviously, we're pretty heavily regulated, whether it's brokers or movers or us doing sales. Obviously, we're not a broker. So how does that compare to Canadian market?
so in Ontario, where we currently reside, Toronto, Ontario, it's not actually a regulated industry. So, the government says, well, you got to get your CVOR, which is your commercial vehicle operator's license. But outside of that, there's no regulations. So what happens is, because it's not a regulated industry, it almost becomes the wild, wild west, right? Like anybody can pick up a truck or go to a Penske or a Ryder, rent a truck, call themselves a mover, and there's no laws or regulations to protect the consumers about it. They are starting to crack down on it a little bit. Like you'll see there's some news reports with the Toronto police getting involved now, where companies are essentially taking people's belongings and holding them hostage. But that's this industry is so tainted. I think it's tainted worldwide, but really in Ontario, because it's not regulated, companies are allowed to essentially do whatever they want, and then the consumers are left with no real resources on how to protect themselves against moving companies, right? So they're essentially left in the dark here. What's
No,
it
that's
states?
hard.
Like I know that it's heavily regulated in the states, but I also know that there's a lot of of the same issues with moving companies in the United States. So how are these companies getting away with it in the United States if it's so regulated?
Well, generally speaking, it's some companies can slip through the cracks because basically, so you have the companies need to have a DOT and MC, right? So depending on the state, because we also have kind of different states have different rules. California is different, Georgia is heavily regulated, a lot heavier than some of the other places. But for example, if you have an MC, let's compare Maryland, Virginia, right? So Maryland, Virginia, DC, in these states, if you have MC, you can work across the state, right? So you can work through the state of Maryland. You don't need a DOT. In order to go cross state lines, you need to have a DOT also, right? So then obviously you have regulations for insurances, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? That stuff. But I know, for example, a company that used to be my client. I actually used to work for them directly. I'm not going to mention a name, but they used to go across state lines all the time. Okay, and they've been as far as I know, they've been stopped at least twice by the DOT, and they had to pay a $30,000 fine each time for not having the license, and then they had their trucks put out of order, obviously. So as long as they get enough business, people will still risk it. But then there's fines involved, and it's the thing. That's the question. Like, and then obviously, the companies that are unlicensed operators, right? That's also, do they get pulled over by DOT? I mean, unfortunately, you can't put a DOT, a car inspection on every single road there is. There's always ways past, to go around the weight station if you're going across state lines, because with across state line moves, you need to do logbooks and you need to do a lot of that type of stuff. So, yeah, I mean, if you go across state lines, it's impossible to put a inspector on every single road there is. So that's why it's like, if there was one main road and there was no way to go past it, but there's always side roads. There's always other ways to go around it,
Is
So.
there are the logbooks now in Ontario here? I'm almost certain that now they have to be electronic, no more paper logbooks. Is that the case?
I'm not sure. That part would be outside of my jurisdiction, so to speak. So I mean, I know that there are electronic things. I don't know if it's mandatory at this point or not. That part I don't know. So I only speak of what I do know. But yeah, I mean, I know that both are available, but I don't know if the electronic ones are mandatory or not.
Okay.
That I don't know. So but of course, anybody that's listening that's interested in that, that's not doing that, you're always more than welcome to go to Department of Transportation, dot.gov, and check that out and see what the requirements are. So you can go to the Department of Transportation website. But get into the other one. What about pricing? Are there any rules around the estimates? What happens with them when the job is underquoted? Does the company charge more than client is expecting? Is there any kind of regulations on that in Canada, or?
So there is, but companies, they find little loopholes to get around it. So in Ontario, legally speaking, and again, most consumers don't actually know this, but in Ontario, if you provide a written estimate, legally you're not allowed to charge more than 10% of the original estimate.
What if the person has more items than on the original inventory?
Right. So then you would bring out, a revision of estimate
Mm-hmm.
or some sort of document giving a
Mm-hmm.
client the new estimate.
Okay.
So
So that's similar to what Georgia does, because I was just speaking to a company from Georgia yesterday. So and in another message from our sponsors, for a limited time only, we have partnered with an SEO and marketing company with discounted rates. Schedule an appointment via Calendly link below. From what I understand. So let's say I do an inventory. When they come on the day of the move, the customer has more stuff, right? So they can either stick to the original contract, or they can basically do a new contract, redo the pricing to include the additional things, whatever. And the most that they can change is, I think, on the original one would be by 10%. And if it's more than 10%, they can't charge it on the same day. They
Okay,
basically have to charge the remainder on the next day. So that's a Georgia thing.
that's
So yeah, so that's interesting. But I mean, I guess a lot of the states don't have that. So my thing is this for us here at Moving Sales Professionals, because our goal is to be accurate for inventories. So in generally speaking, for us, if the person has a lot more stuff, is because they didn't tell us something. It's generally not because we were trying to lowball them. And for that reason, we always get involved in the call in that situation. And we specifically say, okay, well, you gave us the correct inventory, right? Yeah, I gave you correct inventory. Where did that extra 500 boxes come from?
right,
I forgot about an attic or whatever.
right,
Well, you have two choices now. A, remove the items on the original inventory, which is going to be roughly about that original estimate, give and take. Or remove everything, but now it's obviously going to be more because it's going to take more time. You may need more packing. You may need whatever the case is, local move,
more
long distance,
resources,
ounce,
whatever.
cubic feet, any of that stuff. So, but yeah, I mean, we get involved in that. I mean, you're not gonna find other call centers out there that do go into it. That most of them are done at the point of sale. We're not.
Right. Well, it's here, even though there's the 10% rule, what companies are infamous for here is they'll lowball over the phone, right? A
Mm-hmm.
lot of companies, I think, are moving away from the in-home surveys now,
Mm-hmm.
and they're doing a lot of it over the phone.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens is they show up to the move day, and the inventory may be accurate, but they'll say, "Oh, you didn't tell us about the stairs. Oh, you didn't tell us about this. Oh," and they'll find whatever excuse they can
To change the price.
to change the price,
Right.
and then they'll put it in front of the customer. And the problem is, if you're closing on the same day, which I highly recommend against for homeowners, but if you
Mm-hmm.
are, you're sort of in a hard place now, because the chances of you finding a good reputable company on the same day are next to impossible. Now you're forced to sign this new contract.
Right.
So that's how they get away with it here.
Right. I mean, we run into flat rate, so-called quote unquote flat rate movers that are out there. And that's exactly it. That's why, I when I see those type of quotes, and obviously we see them a lot because we're, competing, we have companies that compete with other companies, right? So we see that a lot. Anytime I see a flat rate, I always explain to a customer that, look, flat rate is always given based on something. So yeah, we're giving you an estimate versus them giving you a flat rate, but our estimate is based on actual time. You got a flat rate where even if you're one box over, which can easily be done because when they're estimating this stuff for you over the phone, you have no idea how many boxes you have. You may tell them 30, but you can easily end up with 50. Who knows? Maybe you have 100 if you've been at that house for many years, and it's the point is that if you get a flat rate, obviously it's going to be based on what you said. What the customer said, you're going to be basing the quote on that. And that's yeah, obviously those are loopholes. People are looking, one box is enough to potentially change that price. And obviously, on the flat rate, it's not going to tell you on these contracts, it's not going to tell you how much the price is going to be changed by. What's the difference?
Right.
So that's, yeah, I mean, there are companies obviously take advantage of that. Now, let me ask you this. Obviously here, I mean, we got a lot of online reviews and things like that. And I know that the Better Business Bureau does have offices or things for Canada as well. Does it work as well as it does here, where you can really use the Better Business Bureau profiles to basically your advantage, in terms of using it to show the clients that you are a reliable business, in fact, or what would you say?
I would say that the Better Business Bureau in Canada is far less useful than in the United States.
Mm,
When I was at Two Men in a Truck, we were part of the Better Business Bureau, and it's really nonsense. Like we had, several complaints come through over my time at Two Men in a Truck.
Mm-hmm.
And really, all you got to do is respond to the complaint saying we're working with the client. That's it. Every response we did was we're working with the client, whether there's a resolution or not. Um, I would say generally in Ontario, I can't really speak for the rest of Canada, but let's say generally in Ontario, consumers are not looking to the Better Business Bureau for a credit for an accredited company. Like I've 25,000 moves under my belt. I can count on my hand how many people asked me if I was registered with the Better Business Bureau.
Mm-hmm. Is
Not
there a different agency that you could use for like, because I mean, obviously, as a call center, we first of all, we're not gonna bash anybody. We don't do
right.
that. We simply provide clients with real, actual information that we can access, that they can Google and find themselves if they want to, But that's ultimately what we want to do is when we want to find real information.
Yeah, there's another one. There's the CAM, the Canadian Association of Movers, which again, like I'm not associated with it because I personally I think it's a bunch of nonsense. Again, like I've never had a client, like maybe a handful of clients ask me if I'm accredited with Canadian Association of Movers or Better Business Bureau. So there's really nothing. And that's what I was essentially talking about when there's no resources really for clients because it's an unregulated industry. Most people, I would say, are looking to reviews online,
Mm,
opinions from their friends or people that they know that have used us or used the company that they're interviewing, but there's no real, concrete like this is where all the reputable companies are. Like it's really
mm.
just a
So
free for all.
sounds right. Yeah, that's what it sounds like. So sounds like basically if you're a good salesman, the
Yeah,
only thing that you can hope for is that you're representing a good company and not somebody that's going to go and do
yeah,
crazy things to these clients. Yeah,
yeah,
that would be a hard thing to do. I could see some challenges on that front, certainly.
yeah. So we don't. I thought about getting involved with Cam and the BBB, but it's just to me, it's just a money grab. Like I've been, going this far without
Well,
it.
what I would suggest, and it may be a money grab from that standpoint, but to me, you need to differentiate yourself from other moving companies and not just by your services, certainly, your pricing, certainly. But
Sure.
if you're a new, like in your case, for example, the name of the company, specifically Relocation Engineers is a new company to the market. So
Absolutely.
anything that you can do to differentiate yourself from your competition, like saying, "Oh, we are part of the Better Business Bureau. Oh, we are part of the CAM or whatever," stuff like that may be enough of a differentiation that will, give you more business because whoever they're comparing you to may not have any of that.
It's true. And we might, it's a
You want to
question.
you, you want to differentiate yourself. That's basically you want to make yourself, give if especially if that industry is if it is a free for all, if it is not regulated as well as it should be, realistically, the more companies that are doing business the right way are part of this stuff, the more it will lead, hopefully, towards the right regulation where it's not wild, wild west.
That's an interesting perspective. And it is something that we've,
Not to say that some of the shady companies are not going to do the same technique.
of course, of
But
course.
the thing is that if every licensed company thinks the same way that well, what you just stated, if they're thinking the same way, and maybe it is something that's ultimately is a money grab, that's not much of a thing. But if that customer talks to 5 companies and you guys are all have the similar price, for example, right? But you have those two things going for you and they don't, that may be enough of a difference to get you more work.
Maybe, maybe,
I mean,
and
and if I as a salesperson, that would be something that I would emphasize. They say, "Oh, well, what makes you different?" Well, are those guys parts of this? I would 100% use that. Like, look, we want to use whatever is available in terms of tools. What you have in your toolbox, you want to use it. You don't want to throw it away.
Well, we
So,
did sign up with the Google guaranteed.
mhm.
So so what's interesting about that is that required far more like background checks than the Better Business Bureau or CAM. Like we had to do criminal record checks, we had to
Well, that's
provide
great.
points, right? Like
Well, then that means you're getting some stuff that other companies are not getting because they don't pass it.
that's right.
Right.
That's right.
So that's, but once again, it just leads into being creative and coming up with things that are going to differentiate you from your competition ultimately. I mean, there's plenty of business to go around, but if you're trying to grow, and especially if you're trying to grow quickly, whatever you do, it's kind of the same thing. Don't ask for a customer to write something later. Okay. If they're happy with you, well, sir, here's an iPad. Can you please, you're happy with the guys. We are happy to work with you. We'd love to help you out anytime you need. Can you put something out for us? Help a local business,
It
you
really
know,
helped.
because realistically, people are more likely to put something online when they're pissed than when they're happy about something. And when they're happy about something, if you don't do it right there and then, 2 days later, they're going to forget about it.
That's right. Well, what are
Somebody
they?
may go in, but what's the percentage really of people that are actually going to go online and post a good review for you that are going to help your business versus the other way around?
Well, I think what's the saying, right? It's an angry, pissed off customer will tell 12 friends, and a
Mhm.
happy customer is only going
It
to tell
goes
three,
both ways. It goes
right?
both ways. So you want to make sure, like, you need to maximize on, especially new companies out there, guys. You're trying to grow your business as quickly as possible, right? You want to get past that 3 year mark at year one, right?
That's right.
So the best way to do that is to increase them. The more reviews you have out there, the more
That,
business your positive reviews, the more business you're going to attract.
that's right.
Local movers, you guys do a lot of work. So the best way to attract more work, bigger jobs, get those reviews right there before you leave.
Yeah,
That's the quickest way you're going to grow it.
that's
Don't
true.
let it be like that. So uh the other part I wanted to ask you, so what would you say, so how Canadians make the buying decisions in your opinion? Are they different than the way Americans choose it, or is it the same? Is is being direct your advantage, disadvantage?
I think it's, like I think it's similar, but it's different. So I think Americans and correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most Americans appreciate more so of a direct approach,
It depends.
right? Um, there was a study that came out, I believe it was last year, the year before, where they said Canadians are generally more likely to buy from brands that share the same moral values as them.
Mm, okay.
So really, it becomes when you start to think about the process of sales or the process of conversion, right?
Hmm.
You really want to start thinking about, well, it's more than a moving company. It's more than, selling donuts. It's more than whatever. How can we relate to our customers on a personal level
Hmm.
where they feel more confident buying from?
So feeling off that, so do you take part in any kind of community related outreach or anything like that? What do you guys do? Because I would imagine if that's the focus, right? If that's really something that make a difference, then doing some sort of a community outreach, like participating in the bake sale that's going to help out the local school
Yeah.
or whatever, anything like that would put your name out there.
Yeah, so any opportunity, or I shouldn't say any, most opportunities that come up, we're actually actively looking for opportunities to serve the community. We've done some work for local women shelters. We've donated some basketball tickets to our local school. So one of the schools that one of our children go to, they did a fundraiser around Christmas, so we donated some basketball tickets for a family to win. We're going to be donating Blue Jays tickets coming up now that baseball season's starting. We were working on Well, actually, I just signed up with what is it, Move for Hunger? Is that what the big charity is? I
Yeah,
think.
I've heard the name. I
So
mean,
we
there's
just
Habitat for Humanity and stuff like that too.
Habitat for Humanity as well. So we just signed up for that. We're working on a new program right now, I guess you could call it, where so currently, like right now, we sell boxes.
Hmm.
Even if you decide not to use us for the packing,
Hmm.
we can provide boxes. And typically, we deliver the boxes complimentary, free of charge.
Hmm.
Uh, and what we're moving towards now is we want to, after the move is complete, we'll pick up the boxes for free.
Hmm.
And then we'll use those boxes and donate them to, single mothers, people with mental health issues, people
Hmm.
that are moving that maybe just can't afford to buy boxes because it can get expensive, get
Hmm.
costly, right? Um, we've done some work with local charities, and as we grow, we want to be more and more involved in the community because you nailed it right on the head. Like that really pulls on the heartstrings of people, and
Yeah.
we're doing a good thing.
Yeah, once again, differentiating yourself from others certainly helps. Like, how are you different? Why? Yeah, you might be more expensive, but you do A, B, C, D that the less expensive people don't do, or whatever the case may be. It's how are you different? Why should they choose you? What makes you unique?
That's right.
So I think that goes without saying for whether you're Canada or UK or US, any one of these markets, I think being unique would be something that would be, you know, so underappreciated, and it's certainly I think it needs to be focused on because sometimes people focus on money versus focusing that, yeah, I mean, people are willing to pay more if they're connecting to you on a moral ground. You know what I mean? Not everybody, of course, but
Not everybody,
it's still, it doesn't hurt. Doesn't hurt.
most people, and you know we're we're at a point where we're also donating 10% of all of our revenue that comes in, right? So it's going to
Oh
different
wow.
organizations. And the goal is to get that number up to 20%.
Wow.
And
That's
with
impressive.
it's really important
Certainly
for
something for us to aspire to be honest. I'd love to be able to do some sort of charity work as well. But that's great. That's great. So once again, so Colin, thank you for sitting down with us. This was a pleasure. So once again, everybody, Colin Vanderwerff, an outstanding Canadian citizen here, clearly, with the Relocation Engineers out of Toronto, Canada. Thank you so much for joining us. And as we always say, the world moves on its own. Let the professionals move yours for you. Thank you very much for joining us. Thank you for tuning into our podcast and have a wonderful day. We'll see you soon.
all right, have a great day. Thanks for having me, Yuri. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it.